One of the most common questions I get asked from students and passengers is, why don't we just take off vertically straight up into the air? Which is a very fair question, I suppose. But if we look here at R22 user manual, we have this height velocity diagram. And this basically gives us parameters of height and speed combinations at which we will be able to safely execute an emergency landing. So you can see here we stay at about 10 feet above the ground until we have reached 40 knots airspeed. And then from there on we initiate the climb. Now if you've watched any of the other videos, you'll know by now that nothing is just straightforward when it comes to chopper flying. When we move from a hover into forward flight, the helicopter experiences translational lift. Now, without getting into too much details, can basically be described as an increase in rotor efficiency without the need for extra power. So it's almost like free lift. And both the main rotors and tail rotor experiences this. It's a lot of words, a lot of info just to basically say that when we get to 12 to 20 knot forward airspeed, the helicopter will yaw to the left and we need right pedal. Shortly after translational lift, the helicopter experiences something called inflow roll, which happens to the right, and it is corrected with left cyclic input. If I have to break down forward transitions into 5 steps, I would almost say step 1, gentle forward cyclic, small raise of collective to prevent a sink, and pedals to keep the skids straight or the nose straight. It's very important to keep the skids straight. Just in case we have engine failure, we can just do a slide on landing. If the skids are turned to the side, we can get into dynamic rollover. Step 2, between 12 and 20 knots, translational lift happens and the helicopter wants to pop up. So we keep forward cyclic and then right pedal to keep the nose straight. Apply enough left cyclic to prevent that inflow roll from happening and keeping position over the ground. Step 3, when we reach 40 knots, gentle aft cyclic to start the climb. And at about 50 feet above the ground, we want to be at 50 knots. So you raise your collective to climb power, which is usually 22 inches. And then we have to start using left pedal for balance. Step 5, climb away at about 60 knots airspeed and a rate of climb of 500 foot per minute. So my advice to students are usually keep the skids level, do control inputs as you see it's needed. So if you see the helicopter yaws, use your pedals to keep the nose straight. If you see the helicopter drift or roll, use the cyclic to keep it level and straight. Also take your time, be patient for that speed to build up. We really want to try and not climb out at too steep an angle of climb at a very low airspeed. Also keep an eye on the manifold pressure gauge. It happens very quickly that we can pull too much power. And then check out the next video on how we teach approaches when coming into land.